Um, he died on the 23rd. I know that. So I guess 5 or 6 days ago. So I want to talk about grief. I want to talk about life after death. I want to talk about how our minds try to make sense of things that are probably nonsense. And I want to talk about living with grief as uh, almost like a partner. So if you've seen my recent posts, I think the two recent posts, one was called The Sin of Overprotection, and the other one was called We Were Created for Joy. So the one that was called We Were Created for Joy, which is where I talk about the fact that my brother was killed. Originally, I started writing it just as a reflection on the Christmas season itself and how people um, try to find some happiness, which is not exactly joy, in the Christmas season, and some of it's obligatory. And I had given a talk on the Sunday before Christmas and had shared that um, and shared my own experience with my parents breaking up on Christmas and why uh, I did not have that attachment to Christmas that a lot of us have. And so that would have been enough. And I had this sense of frustration, and I'm going to write some stuff about this later, but some frustration with some of the obligatory things that we do in our society where people basically think that you're supposed to feel this way on this certain day because somebody made up a holiday. And that's never been a thing for me because of my parents breaking up on Christmas. So I was already going to write about that. But I was also going to say that there's a joy that transcends these moments, and that how by leaning into joy, I can join people when they're trying to be happy on these holidays and being this like, you know, fake holidays stuff. But anyway, I don't want to call it fake, but for me it is because I never had this Christmas thing. So I started writing it and then found out that my brother was killed. And so when I found out my brother was killed, just after I gave a talk about how some people don't experience the Christmas holidays the same as everybody else, 2 days later, my brother's dead. And my soul was like, okay, you have a choice now. Will you continue to write about joy like you were going to do and just bring it into your present moment? Or will you go into despair and just say F the whole thing? And so I made the choice to reclaim and hold on to this idea of a true joy that transcends all this stuff while feeling the pain and the shock of my brother being dead. But the extra tension of it, which has messed with me a little bit, is the piece prior to the the piece about joy, which was the sin of overprotection. Because I wrote the piece, the sin of overprotection, because I was trying to keep myself from calling my brother and giving him a speech about why he should leave this person that he was with. Because I had already given him that speech. And I felt this tension because I didn't want him to feel like he couldn't talk to me because I was going to be the older brother and always trying to tell him what to do. And I had this experience in a class I was taking where my instructor had pointed out my tendency to overprotect, which if you read the piece about overprotection, it was an Enneagram class. And I guess I displayed my overprotection trait in the class. And so that kind of stung to have that feedback a little bit. And I decided to sit with the sting of that feedback and just wrestle with it. And so I did. And as a result of that wrestling, I ended up pushing myself not to call my brother and to not try to play the overprotective role and to just sit with it and write about it. So I wrote The Sin of Overprotection. And then 10 days later, my brother is dead from the very thing that I was trying to not make myself say to him again, which he already heard from me more than once. And so I have to live with that. And I don't blame myself. And people have told me, you told him, you know, and he had to make his choices. And that's true. But it doesn't change the linearity. It doesn't change the idea that that I like legitimately chronicle my decision to not call him. And I got this thing where if I see something that looks like one of my siblings' initials, I just contact all my siblings. And so I saw one of my brother's initials several times on certain days, last like a week or some ago, 10 days ago. No, well, now it's been like 2 weeks. And so it was just like, okay, call him, call him. But I decided not to contact my younger siblings, but to only contact my older siblings because I don't feel that protective energy over my older siblings. Because I was the oldest in my mom's house and I had two older siblings from my dad. So I called them because I don't feel overprotective over them. But I didn't call my younger siblings because I didn't want to, you know, play that role. So now my brother got killed by the girl that I told him several times to not be with. There's nothing I can do about it. What I can find in it, and what I said in the piece about joy, um, is this other mystery that I don't understand, which is all the pieces that led to me not calling him is one thing. But then the night before he got stabbed, or the night that he got stabbed, I was reading a book about facing your own death and having these visions in my mind that I was going to get killed. And in a way that he got killed. Don't know what to do with that. Then the next morning, I was going to listen to Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, which I read, once or either one every other year, or sometimes a couple of years in a row. And I was going to do that again, but I was going to listen to it this time because I bought this audiobook series of his collections. And then something said, no, just listen to The Great Divorce. And I did. And in that audiobook, it was a story about a guy who went to heaven after murdering somebody, and it was him murdering the person what made him realize that he was lost in his mind. And then he was able to kind of heal through that. And he was getting criticized by another person saying, you don't belong in heaven because you murdered somebody. And I'm asking myself, like, well, if somebody murdered somebody I cared about, would I be able to forgive them? I'm literally working on this inside of myself from this audiobook, not knowing my brother's in surgery, fighting for his life from getting stabbed from this woman. And then I'm talking to my wife on the phone. I said, and the night before I told her, I don't feel good. I can't breathe. Next day, I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on with me, but I can't breathe. Right. 20 minutes later, my cousin calls me and tells me he's dead. That's craziness. And on a certain level, I feel like my soul was preparing me for this thing. So I've been crying a lot, which is not my normal way of dealing with things, honestly. Normally what I do is I'll cry, but I won't do it in front of people. Like normally I'll go hide somewhere, lock myself in a room, go be in the dark, just like stay by myself until I can come out, you know, but I haven't been doing that this time, which has been interesting for my family, for my wife, for my kids. My kid literally told me like, Dad, I don't even know what to do because I'm not used to you crying. I don't even know what to do right now. And so this has been an interesting experience for us as a family, seeing this shift in me. My normal way is I feel angry first, and then I walk myself back from the anger, and then try to like process it by writing, which is what I normally do. Because I take that anger and I translate it into something through writing and work my way to a more manageable feeling. That's just how I roll. So, this time I've been doing it differently. And another thing that I did differently, which has been really interesting, is our mom used to say, she said it to me when I was younger. She used to say the past and the present and the future all occupy the same space and that there's no separation. And this like thing we call time is like an illusion, right? And so I noticed that when friends started calling me who I haven't seen in a long time, and I've only talked to them. I haven't talked to them in sometimes in decades. And we talked about my brother and, went through the feelings and things like that. It felt like he was alive because I was talking to people that only knew him a lot, and I was witnessing that arising inside of me and just kind of dancing with that. And so I was just like, man, it's weird. Like if I think about like talk to people from the old neighborhood, I can only imagine the old neighborhood and imagine us being alive and I'm in a different place, in a different state of consciousness. And so I decided to do something to kind of play around with this idea that the past, present, the future all occupy the same space. And so in reality, even though my brother is dead in what we call the present, like that life that he's lived in the past is also eternal. Like it still exists forever. And even though his bios, his physical body is not functioning, living in this time, it's like he's still alive in some kind of way, if that makes sense. And so I tried something very like interesting is I just like basically sat there and like I woke up in the morning and I was having trouble sleeping, obviously. And while I was laying in the bed, I decided that I would um just uh, imagine talking to him in our living room when we were younger. And so I just said to him, hey man, you're gonna die young, bro. Like you're gonna die before me. You're gonna die when you're 47. And there's nothing I can do about it. But I'm gonna try anyway. I'm gonna try to protect you. I'm gonna tell you, don't do this and don't do that, even though you're not gonna want to hear it from me. But it's always gonna be love, and that's why I'm doing it. And I'm just gonna be that way. And we just gotta navigate this life. And it's just going to play out that you're just going to die anyway. And there's really nothing I can do about it, even when I warned you. And this is real life now. I literally told this dude, I don't want to hear that something happened to you because you keep dealing with this woman. So, so in the like meditation or whatever you want to call it, I said that to him, told him everything, what happened to him and stuff like that, and how he was going to leave. And in this version of him, in my imagination, he was like 11, 12, something like that. And then he says, is that's how it's going to be? And I said, yeah, man, it's really nothing we can do about it, but just like love each other until that time comes. And that's just it. So I said there, my imagination got away from me. And when I was a kid, I used to do that. And I remembered, I haven't done it in years, but when I was a kid, I used to have I would sit in the chair and like imagine different scenarios. And then at some point, my imagination would get away from me and just like stuff that I wouldn't even think of would just come up. And so that's what happened in this time. And then he was just like, well, I'm just going to try to live my life then, man. If I'm going to die at 47 anyway, I might as well just live my life the best I can and deal with the stuff I got to deal with. And so he did, and all of a sudden, a lot of the decisions that he made that didn't make sense to me made sense in the context of a person who knows that their time is limited. And I've been talking to different people who talked to him recently who all of us would agree it seemed like he was on a farewell tour when he was like visiting with people. One thing that's sad is I was in his area a few months ago and we were supposed to meet up. And then he was out hanging out with somebody and he was in somebody else's car, he said. So he never showed up. And I was, disappointed. And my wife told me I could stay another day and try to meet up with him. But I was just like, man, I'm always like, no, anyway, I decided not to do it. And there's some regret there. But I just kind of went through that process. And then at some point, in that process, what was crazy is some woman showed up and started hugging me and let me cry. And I was like, I could feel like it was almost real. And it was this white lady. And I was like, who is this? Like, I could feel the person. And I was like, who is this? And then it hit me that it was my first stepmom, the woman that caused my mom and dad to break up on Christmas because she made my dad choose and he chose her. And I was like, yo, is this my stepmom? And she and my dad broke up when I was like 13, 14, something like that. So I'm 50 now, and she's dead. But then it's like, what's crazy is I was like, I would have never on my own chosen her as the person that would put an embrace on me to let me grieve my brother's loss. But it, for some reason, it did. And it was like a weird full circle because she was the person that kind of effed up my first conscious Christmas. And then in this, and it could have been my brain conjuring up. I'm not saying it was like a really mystical, magical thing or anything. It's just wild that that's what happened. And I felt like my stepmom was holding me, even though she was the first person to make me not give a crap about Christmas. So I don't know what to say about that. I don't even know why I'm sharing it 100%. Maybe this might serve somebody. But what I got out of it is this remembrance that, life is interesting. Last thing I'll say, and this might make me sound woo woo, but I'm about to come out as more woo woo than I sound right now, is if I think I said it in one of my writing posts, but I'll just say it in this one. My little brother was born on the same day that my granddad died, um, back when I was almost 4 years old. He was born on the same day in his body. He was born in the hospital my granddad died in. My granddad died and they took his body to that hospital. But what was crazy is before my granddad died, I was like, I didn't want to leave my granddad, and my mom and my grandma made me go with them to this place called the Pottery in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I was like, why did they go? I want to stay with granddad. And they were just like, you acting like you're gonna never see him again. And I was acting the fool, and I never saw him again alive. But they said, you act like you're never gonna see him again. And I still remember to this day, because then when we dropped my grandma off, I said, well, let me go see granddad. And my mom, for some reason, was like, no, we're gonna see him later anyway. Just stay in the car. And I was like, come on, let me see granddad. She was like, no. So she took us home to Churchland, which was probably about 10 minutes from my grandma's house. And then we get in the house. My uncle's on the phone because he was staying us at the time. And my uncle, we walk in, and my mom, he had his look on his face, and my mom said, what? He said, Daddy's dead. Just like that. No, sit down, take a minute. He was just like, Daddy's dead. And then my mom said, you lying. Don't say that in front of Pedro. He doesn't know what, and my uncle said, he doesn't know what dead is. And I was like, yes, I do. And I snapped because I told you I go to anger first. And then I just like knocked over the glasses, and I'll never forget. This is how real this was for me. The glasses were from Florida, because my mom had gone there on active duty when she was in the reserve. She had like 2 weeks duty, and she brought these glasses back from Florida that had little oranges for the face. And I still remember to this day because I smashed those joints. And then I was like, and I was real mad and like just pissed. And I cried, and everything, and went through the funeral and everything. And then I remember when I cried at the funeral, the tears were burning my face. And then I said to myself at the funeral, I'm never going to cry when somebody dies again, which is not a great thing for a little kid to tell himself. But I told myself that, and then I just was like, shh. And I've been dealing with my grief and emotions like that. Like, I deal with them. I don't hide from them, but I don't show them to other people generally if I can help it. Like I said, I hide and go recluse and then come back more, because I didn't like that I snapped and knocked those glasses over, didn't have any control of myself. So that's a type 8 Enneagram thing. So anyway, I'm a textbook. Thanks for whoever listens to this. I'm obviously processing. So all this to say, when my cousin called me to tell me that my brother was dead, he said it the same. He just was like, hey man, nothing to do but rip the Band-Aid off. Your brother's dead. And I was like, this is terrible. So, and I always thought that my brother was my granddad came back to try to be with me because he knew I wasn't handling his death well, you know. And it took me all these years to process all this stuff. And right when I get to this place where I'm just like, I'm processing this, I'm healing my overprotection stuff, and I'm just going to live my life like as open as possible, then my brother leaves. Does it mean anything? I don't know. What I do know is that now I got grief as a companion. I know it's going to sneak up on me because it does. And I know that I have to live with it. I had to, you know, I can't answer the questions like, had I called him, would I have saved his life? Even if I did, he stayed with her all these other times when I told him not to. So doesn't mean anything. Do I hate her for doing what she did? I don't even, because she already showed herself to be that type of person, and she did what that type of person does. So how I'm gonna hate somebody for being who they were when I asked my brother to stay away from who she was, and he made that decision. So I have to respect it. In the grand scheme of things, with this idea of past, present, and future occupying all the same space, I feel like that's going to be something that I'm going to also walk with for the rest of my life and handle a lot of things differently. I already hold that in my mind mentally, but I'm going to spend more time with that idea because I do believe that the future was telling me, yo, you're about to have an experience and I'm going to set you up for it by bringing that book into my life and me facing it and me seeing myself, that those things in my mind. I feel like somehow, I don't know how, but I knew. And once my brother died, I could breathe again, which was also weird. And it's a very complex thing. So I'm going to continue to pursue joy, pursue love. I'm going to lean into some of the things that I have had experiences of, but I never pursued them. They just happened. Just like when I saw Oprah in Japan, I saw Oprah in Japan and Lashana Lynch and Ava DuVernay, and I wrote about them on the plane to Japan. I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that works. I know that it happened. And I have people that were there that saw it, so they know I'm not full of crap. How? I don't know. But I think I've come to a point in my life where at least I'm not going to try to force it or cause it, because all of it's happened without my control historically anyway. What I am going to do is embrace it and lean into it and let it guide me more than I have in the past. And maybe just letting go of this overprotection thing of trying to like tell other, because no one ever cares. Like when I try to tell people, like, don't do this, don't do that, and I try to protect them, all they do is decide not to talk to me, you know, because they don't want me to tell them what they already know. And so I got to honor that and figure out who I'm going to be without this role. Because I already know from my brother there was nothing I could do, and there's probably nothing I could do with anybody else but love them. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to love folks. I'm going to love myself, which I do, thank God, um, and create. And hopefully this grief will serve and somehow, um, somehow love is going to show itself to be the undisputed champ in this life. And I know there's a lot of things that have frustrated me over the years, things with religion and politics and stuff like that. But the way I'm feeling right now, I don't want to give any more of my energy to that in that kind of way. I just want to live the truth that I know is true, lean into some of these things that I can't explain, not chasing them, but just being with them. And I guess that's it. So I don't know if any of this was coherent. I don't know if it's going to serve anybody, but it's where it is. Thanks.